It's time once again to check in with the Time Lord we know as Doctor Who. And yes, he was and is a Time Lord. Jeez. So this one, in recent era, has become controversial, which is odd because no one seems to notice there was another episode where a similar thing happened. And it never gets mentioned. I've mentioned it, but can you guess which one? But anyway, the Talons of Weng Chiang has some interesting aspects to it, story-wise and whatnot. But all that's forgotten and overshadowed because we have a white actor portraying a Chinese man. Even though there were plenty of other Asian actors making up his little criminal gang, his character of Lee Sin was operating under or with. And I don't know. I guess they didn't think they were up to snuff to be a main villain character for the episodes. So they went with this guy. Maybe he was good friends with people in the production and say, "Hey, man, we got a part for you." I don't know. This was done a lot over in the past, and but in this instance, it's quite a good performance. I mean, and he almost ends up being a sympathetic character in that he's led down this path by this absolute fraud that he thinks is his god, and all that sort of thing. But in the end, I mean, what do you do? Do you? The idea now is that it has to be canceled, and I don't know if it's been pulled from BritBox yet. But it might be. So keep your physical copies of whatever movies and films or TV shows you want to watch, because pretty soon you won't have access to it. And then we got to hear about how everybody involved was racist and stuff. So Tom Baker's canceled. Yeah. So, and of course, the language used is reference to the time. All the rest of it, as far as having a white guy play an Asian character, granted, it's theaters where you play all sorts of manner of things, but, well, you have to segregate it, I guess. I don't know. The only real argument, I think, would be that this denies a role to an Asian actor who could have played the role, but instead they gave it to this man whose name escapes me at the moment. But anyway, other than that, it's once again a cool utilization of only a few set pieces and whatnot, and yet you get engrossed in the story. Of course, it's in this atmosphere of old London and the fog and all that stuff. They even go into the sewers. Boy, they go in those sewers a lot. Have to be sure. Those old tunnels are pretty much the same ones you've seen in previous Doctor Who episodes and whatnot. But in this case, that would make sense because it pretty much is. But this time, not instead of Cybermen or Yeti, it's giant rats. So basically, Lee Sin is he's posing as this magician. He's performing at this theater, and he's quite popular and all that, and he's a master of hypnotism. And there's been these women disappearing, and people are suspecting, it's Jack the Ripper back on the prowl, because this is only a few scant years since those murders happened. And stuff like that is floating about. And of course, the Doctor and Leela finally get some decent clothes. So they can fit in, And the Doctor, no scarf in this episode at all. The Doctor decided to dress up as Sherlock Holmes. So it's kind of like that. It's all the science fiction elements and whatnot, but it kind of works. And of course, Tom Baker would later go on to play Sherlock Holmes and what was it, Hound of the Baskervilles. And so anyway, the premise here is Lee Sin is part of this Chinese cult that believes in the Chinese god of Weng Chiang, and he believes he now has Weng Chiang in his presence, and he's doing his bidding, that he's been hurt, and for some reason, but the truth is what it is, he's a time traveler. His name is Magnus Grill. He's a war criminal from the 51st century. Apparently was involved in World War VI. So this is an interesting thing, because even the Doctor mentions he was involved in that war. He was there and knew the name, Magnus Grill. So, boy, there's a whole other story one could delve into if the people in charge of Doctor Who today even knew that. Yeah. Well, some do, I'm sure. But yeah. So anyway, that's an interesting little backstory to the character. But he's often he's not all that. He's just a kind of an idiot. He used this time machine, and it's no TARDIS. It doesn't work very well, and in fact, it's killing him. It nearly killed him in his travel to escape his time. He comes to this time, runs into Lee Sin, and uses him as his stooge, and in order to keep living, he needs to live off the life force of other people, and mostly notably these women that Lee Sin kidnaps for him. He hypnotizes them, and then they bring into his machine that's somehow distills them. I don't know. But anyway, this is what he does, and drains them. And at one point, Leela discovers this and takes the place of one of the women, and ends up fighting with Magnus, and just to show how bad off she pretty much kicks his ass. He stumbles around, but then he's got his ray gun, so she's, holy crap, she's got to get out of there, and she thinks she can get away through the tunnels, but surprise, there's a giant rat in there, and chases. And now here, the utilization of keeping everything really dark because, well, they didn't really have a giant rat, So, and still you kind of see too much of it, but still. And of course, the doctor is already suspecting, because there's been these killings, and he sees, hey, looks like the bite marks of a rodent, and he meets the coroner, which is Dr. Lightfoot. He says, oh, that's ridiculous, but the doctor is determined that there's something going on. Of course, he doesn't see it as ridiculous. He's met quite a few mutations. So the doctor's down there with an elephant gun, I believe. But, it's what he needed. And once again, yes, the doctor uses a gun. So he kills the beast and rescues Leela. One of the few times that the doctor had to kill something in order to save Leela, because it was pretty much game over for Leela as it managed to get a bite on her leg there. But the doctor took care of that pretty quick. And so there you go. Now, of course, where did the giant rats come from? Well, stupid Magnus Creel likes to mess with creatures like that. So that's what he did. And in order to keep people away from his little secret hideout beneath the theater there. And so that's what he was doing. Meanwhile, he's got this other creature, this homunculus that was created that has a part of a pig brain in it or something. I don't know. Lee Sin uses it as a ventriloquist dummy. But it just likes to go around killing people because it's a bit of a psychopath. And even tries to kill Leela. It's coming after her, but was really never any match for Leela. And there's quite a few action scenes where she smashes out a window and all that stuff. Plus, she has to teach Lightfoot how to eat chicken. But still, the elements of it, and Lightfoot says, well, it's not proper for a lady and all that. And of course, the times he's in and doesn't understand about Leela. And also with Jago, and wow, that guy was a Chinaman, and you say, oh my God, he uses that. It is the times. That's how they spoke. But if you can't even depict that, then of course this goes into our current era of erasing eras, so that we can all be ignorant and stupid together. So anyway, that's another subject. So anyway, it plays in with the times that they did. This is a time traveling show. They do go into other times where things are not the way they are now. If you can't figure that out, then it's not the show for you. It really isn't. So ultimately, of course, Magnus isn't going to last very much longer. He lost his time cabinet, and it turns out Lightfoot has it as a decoration sitting in his home because, it's kind of pretty to look at. Little did he know that it's a time machine from the 51st century. So, of course, the gang gets it back. Magnus tries to activate it and take off. The doctor warns him it's not going to work, and if he does, it's going to be this huge disaster that could probably wipe out half of London and maybe more. I forget. They have this battle there. The homunculus, Mr. Sin, goes crazy because just so happens he's got a giant dragon with laser eyes in it, so he just starts shooting at everybody. But eventually, Magnus falls prey to his own little life force stealing machine, and he shrivels into a pile of ashes. Yeah, that's the end of him. But still, could have done a story about his goings on, because apparently the Doctor was there. But do you really need to? No, you don't. But still, if you're desperate for material, there's something to explore. But don't. The new crew would ruin it, as it is now. So anyway, there you go. The Talons of Weng Chiang. As for Lee Sin, well, boy, he doesn't end well. He tries to get himself killed by the rat, but the rat just, I don't know, just wasn't hungry that day. It just sort of left him in the sewer, and he ends up in an opium den to stone himself to death, basically. And he does. But once again, the Doctor is struggling with a dying man to try to figure out where the hell is the secret, the final base of Creel. Well, of course, he dies before he can. But he gives him a clue by grabbing him his boot or something like that. So anyway, okay. That's the end of that. So it's a really a moody episode, and its atmosphere, and it really works well, and it's a fun episode. And I think the criticisms of it are overblown. There's far worse examples of this elsewhere. This certainly isn't the case, and there was no I don't see any evidence of ill intent in that, whereas other examples certainly were. Now, looking back at it, would I rather it actually be a Chinese man playing the part of Lee Sin? Yeah, but that's not reason enough to say, well, it can never be seen again because this is, on par with genocide or something. I mean, it's just that in and of itself is far more insulting than anything any Doctor Who episodes did. So yeah, it's a lot of foolishness about that, and it's unfortunate because, again, it's a pretty good episode of Doctor Who. Yeah. So there you go. Continuing in the sort of gothic horror era of the Fourth Doctor's prime here, the golden age of Doctor Who. And we'll get another one in the next exciting episode, which is, I think, in a lot of ways, one of my all-time favorites of Doctor Who. So we'll get to that next time. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. Why not like and subscribe, and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores and have plenty of goodies for you. Hats, mugs, stickers, posters, all that goody stuff. Plus, you can head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. Plus, you can also catch my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, over at RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on my channel at BitChute. That's the Mr Nailsin channel on BitChute.com.